Hey, what's up, everyone? Ryan Arnold, aka Demon Master Reviews here, and today, welcome, as you can see scrolling down, to the second episode of the Damaged Incorporated show. I know I did this a couple days ago, the pilot episode, but once again, this is yet another solo one for me. But at least I got something to talk about here. In fact, it's not one thing, it's four things instead. Because I'm going to be reviewing a handful, four albums. Now, how I'm going to structure this here real quick is two albums are going to be more of like a summary, especially with the first one I'm about to talk about here, kind of more of like a summary, and then the other two that I'll be saving towards the end, I will be giving track by tracks. Now, obviously, for the summary ones, I might mention a track or two or a handful of them, but I ain't gonna talk about all of them. I'm gonna go kind of more of like a summary type of thing. So, let's talk about the first album as I exit this layout. Yes, this first album right here, Darkspace. New album, Darkspace -2. This was released on February 16th of 2024 via Season of Mist. And why it's gonna get a summary here is because it's one song, one track, a one-track album that I think apparently was a leftover from their early days that got remixed for this year to, I guess, to coincide with the band's 25th anniversary because they've been around since 1999. Cool. Um, cool. Like I said, not much I can say about this album, to say the least. To say the least. Least it is black metal, obviously. There is some atmospheric black metal exact, but there is some instrumental moments. There's voices in the background. The vocals in this kind of are more in the background, kind of like the 90s black metal, which, if a lot of people here know me, I'm not really that big on that kind of style. But I think to myself, this was pretty good. You know, it was an interesting listen. Yeah, there may be a few more times where I might listen to it, but it just didn't. I think for this first listen for me, it didn't really click, to say the least. At the very least, it didn't really click for me. For me, for me, for me. At the current moment, I might go back to listen to it every so often to maybe get a better feeling of it. But for the most part, this I might not go back and listen to it like ever. Or maybe I might not listen to it again, or it may be a while before I listen to it again to get a better feeling because it didn't click for me this time. So I'm going to give this a 9.25 out of 10. I did like it. I did enjoy this album, but for me, it just didn't really do anything for me in this case. So, as I now switch over to the next album, Scream Show once again. Yes, this album right here. The next one, Art of Anarchy, Let There Be Anarchy. This is their third album. This was released on February 16th of 2024. All of these are all, as you can probably tell by the time, they're all released on February 16th of 2024 via Pavement Music. This is the third album from the band there. And this is a third one with a different lineup. They got a different vocalist and a different bassist. Because their original bassist, John Moyer, he's from Disturbed. Disturbed can kind of take up a lot of your time. So he ended up just leaving around 2022, and they got a guy by the name of Tony Dickinson on the bass. And to some of those that might remember, this is a little project that Ron Bubblehead and I guess the John and Vince Vata, or I think it might be related. They might be brothers. I don't know, but they are together. Yeah, they're one of the other guitarists and the drummer. I don't know which one, and Ron Bubblehead. And if any of you are familiar with this guy, he's also a former bandmate of Ron Football from a band called Sons of Apollo. And they had a vocalist by the name of Jeff Scott Soto. Now, obviously, this band has gone through a few lineup changes. All their vocalists have the name Scott in them. The first vocalist was Scott Weiland, the late great Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots, Velvet Revolver, all that stuff. And he passed away. I don't know when, but he passed away, and then they got Scott Stepp from Creed and his solo stuff. But then some obligations. He left the band at some point to do a solo tour and stuff like that. To go do solo stuff and all of that. And now they got Jeff Scott Soto. Which I will say immediately, there is a Sons of Apollo sound to it. There is some prog here and there, like a handful of tracks that I think kind of have that, that proggy stuff. Die Hard and The Good, the Bad, and the Insane kind of have that prog metal vibe that they had in Sons of Apollo. But for the most part, there's not much to it. There is kind of the metal stuff and all that stuff. Those are a handful of tracks I do like. Then I got two other songs that were, kind of a highlight for me. Bridge of Tomorrow was after, I think Echo of Madness, the opening track Die Hard, Vilify, which was also one of the singles from this album. But when Bridge of Tomorrow came, it clicked. It turned itself around. It was so great at that point, but then it turned into like, oh my god, this is starting to be an amazing album. And then another song on the album, Blind Man's Victory, was another highlight that I did want to mention. Kind of reminded me of, 80s Metallica. More particular stuff like Fade to Black and Welcome Home Sanitarium. Those songs. It kind of sounded like that, where there's kind of a melodic or more of like a ballady stuff at the beginning, and it got heavier near the end, pretty much. And it was very similar to that. And I absolutely loved it. Obviously, me being a huge Metallica fan, I'm going to instantly love that. Love that. But overall, I loved this album all the way through. After, Bridge of Tomorrow, it just got better and better, and it was on. It's that close. It is that close to a 10 out of 10. But I'm going to give this a 9.75 out of 10. Love the hell out of this album. Next up, now with the ones that I did the summaries for out of the way, let's get to the ones that I can do a track by track for. And we start off with the first one, Eternal Storms, a giant bound to fail. Once again, February 16th of 2024 via Transcending Obscurity Records this time. Second full length from this band, who have been around probably since 2019 a little bit. They did release their debut album, Come the Tide, in 2019. This is the brainchild of one Daniel R. Flies. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but I only just found out that this guy recently joined Persephone. Yeah, you realize I believe I did talk about Persephone not too long ago. I think I gave that one a 10 out of 10. Well, I guess that might be foreshadowing. But let's get into this, the track by track. Start off with An Abyss of Unreason, which has a mix of some Death Heaven style black metal, some Nebula Scars, and some Porcupine Tree. I think the clean sections kind of reminded me of the clean singing versions. Parts kind of reminded me of Porcupine Tree, and there's the Nebula Scars, the growls and stuff like that, minus the violence, of course. And then that is followed up by A Dim Illusion, which features aborted Sven de Kalue, providing additional vocals, which, listening to it, was more of a groovy melodic death metal sound. Had a little bit of prog. Not too much, just a little bit of prog in there. And we get to track 3. There was a wall. Kind of got it. There's a lot of themes are gonna go like there's some melodic death, there's some progressive death, there's some black metal. Well, this was another one where there's some death doom in here. Like I'm hearing Doom VS. Doom VS style death doom or that kind of style funeral doom. Doom. Really freaking great. Then we get to a track that I had a little bit of tough time figuring out. This track 4, Last Refuge. I had a tough time trying to come up with this. It has some Woods Heavy Prey like clean vocals, Opeth like prog death and death doom style hard vocals, prog / metal death sounding riffs or something like that. So like I said, it was kind of hard to describe this album, describe the song pretty much. Then we get a little synth and atmospheric instrumental interlude that goes into the next track, Lone Tree Domain. Kind of a mix of the occurring themes that were going on, death doom, melo death, prog death, and stuff like that. But where this album gets amazing is the 7th track, The Sleepers, which features the legendary Dan Swano, who a lot of people will know. He's from Bloodbath, Edge of Sanity, and stuff like that. You think the Crimson albums that he did in Edge of Sanity and all that stuff. He's on here providing some vocals. And it is definitely this and The Void kind of feel like they're combined and feel like they're one whole unit. And I absolutely love it. Both are instant highlights. And then I mentioned this guy was from Persephone. They got the drummer from Persephone, Sergey Bobby Vertigo. I can't pronounce it. I'm gonna go Bobby here, providing some vocals. Basically, a great sounding death doom, melo doom to end the album. Which it's the title track, obviously, the title track to this album right here. But yeah, overall thoughts. Obviously, because of the whole thing with him being in Persephone, I don't know how often this band will put out more material, considering the fact this was a 5-year gap between this. But I don't know when, but if this is it, I don't know. It probably won't be it. I guarantee there might be more from this band, but my God, this was a fantastic release. Loved it, every minute of it. 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this album, and I do think it will definitely get to be on my year-end list. And then we come to this album right here. The final album to talk about it, track by track. Ihsahn, self-titled 2024 album. Not much I can say. Released February 16th of 2024 via Candlelight. So I'm not going to waste too much. Let's get into this. Starts off with basically an intro to open the album, Service, Venator, symphonic and orchestral, instrumental. Then we get into a song that kind of just sounds like something that Ihsahn would do on his other solo albums, The Promethean Spark. Musically just sounds like something that would be on the other album I got from Ihsahn, Arctis. It kind of sounds like it belongs from that. But then we get to, I think a lot of people are trying to point to saying this is as close as we can get to Emperor. This is where we get the Emperor sound. Pilgrimage to Oblivion. I've heard some Emperor. This definitely feels like it's definitely an Emperor song. Pilgrimage to Oblivion kind of starts with this beautiful orchestral intro before it goes straight into the Emperor sound. And yes, freaking fantastic. I guess some of these are kind of, Beast 3 kind of sound like they're Emperor. They're kind of Emperor like Twice Born, a faster paced Emperor in a nutshell. And then A Taste of the Ambrosia kind of got more of a doomy feel to it, a little bit. Got some doom metal in there a little bit. Then we get to Anima Extraneae, which is just another orchestral instrumental, which then comes into kind of a mixture of Emperor and Ihsahn solo, pretty much. Pretty much, it kind of sounds more Ihsahn solo, but there is some Emperor in there. Then we're getting a little bit more interesting as we get towards the end of the album here. Hubris and Blue Devils, which is the second longest song on here at almost 8 minutes. I listened to this one, I'm like, this sounds like BT Bam. This sounds like it's very, very tactical, go all over the place. The drums are all over the place. Kind of reminds me of a Between the Buried and Me style song to me when I was listening to this. You know, the drums are all over the place, but they're still pretty catchy, to say the least. Least. Then we get The Distance Between Us, which did get a music video. Very Opeth, and when I mean by that, I mean the heritage stuff and onwards. But there's still the growls in there. If it's like they didn't abandon it, but it's just like it's not as a preference, pretty much. It kind of reminded me of some of that Opeth style or something like that. And it's like, what if Opeth continued, but not use the harsh vocals as often? You get this sound. Then we get to the last actual track, At the Heart of All Things Broken. It's 9 minutes and 14 seconds. And immediately I think of a band that isn't active anymore, and I'm kind of sad they aren't. Xanthocroid. It kind of reminded me of Xanthocroid a little bit. Kind of that Melo death, prog death. Kind of the vocals reminded me. Like, I remember listening to that one album, like it was the first part of a double album, A Breath and Accent, I believe it was. And it definitely had the harsh vocals sound kind of like that Ihsahn stuff. This kind of reminded me of Xanthocroid pretty much. And that very prog / Melo death sounding, the Xanthocroid stuff they were doing that I wish they were still around, but they're not anymore. But this is like cool, very cool sounding, very Xanthocroid sounding. And then the album ends with just yet another orchestral, symphonic, instrumental song, short one. But this one's kind of more of a little bit darker than the other two. A little bit darker to end the album. But yeah, overall thoughts, well, yes, there is probably, I can count on a handful of songs that do sound like Emperor. It's mostly other stuff. It's a lot of progressive metal, progressive death, some Melo death here and there. There is, like I said, the Emperor symphonic black metal and stuff like that is there. But for the most part, it's those other things. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 9.75 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. I think all those worked really well. And Ihsahn made, once again, yet another banger of an album. So yeah, that is the final album that I don't need to obviously talk about now. So yes, thank y'all for watching. If you like these, click the like button or the dislike button. Comment below what your thoughts are on all 4 of these albums. And if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button. So thank y'all for watching. This has been episode 2 of the Damage Incorporated show. I'll see y'all later, and as always, keep things metal.